In the previous session, we showed you how we can create database, how can we create tables in it, and how can we show data in it. So based on the examples on our previous class, let's create a database and do some and insert some data in it. So for today, I'm using php.myadmin. The other day I showed you with MySql client, which I recommend more using MySql client. But for today's discussion, we are going to use the interface in php.myadmin. So we are getting this by running the PHP server and the MySQL server. Okay, so let's post these things. Okay, so first of all, what this is going to do is first is going to create a database named site name, and then it selects the database site name, and inside that site name database it will create a table named users, right? And that table will have columns: user ID, first name, last name, email, password, uh, registration date, primary key, etc. Okay, and the user ID is the primary key here, and which gets auto incremented. Okay, next, once we create the table, what we will do is we will insert into the table some values. So insert into users, and then we mention which fields we want to insert. Values, then we mention the values. And as you see, the password here is a character, right? It's an array of character, and we are actually, once we are adding the password to the table, we are encoding it. So SHA2, this is SHA2. This is an encoding function, built-in function that built-in function in PHP. So what it's going to do is it will take this string and encode it and save it in the users table. So basically, any password ideally should be encoded and kept in the database. So that's exactly what we are doing. So we'll be adding records to the users. So 1 record, 2 record, and then you see we add more users. So 4 more here, and then a few more here. Okay, so everyone has a first name, last name, email address. Then they have a password, and we are encoding the password. And finally, this is the time. So the time registration date. So that will take the system time and insert that in the database. Okay, so let's run all these. So if we run all these, what will happen is these commands are going to be run sequentially, first starting from the database, and then creating the table, and then inserting data into the table. Okay, so let's do this. Okay, now you see we have our site name database. Inside that, we have this users table. If you click on this table, you see all the records, right? So since all of them have been executed on the same time, it has the same registration date, then first name, last name, email address, password. Password, as you can see, the password here is encoded using the SHA2 encoding technique. Okay, so this is, until this point we discussed the other day. So now let's do this thing. Okay, so selecting data. So selecting data is like, okay, let's do this thing. We know if we want to see some of the data from this database, what we have to do is, if we say like select the stars from users, already we are inside this database, right? In that case, it will actually give you the list of all the, it will give you the whole record. But you can use some conditionals. Here you see that all the passwords were actually encoded using SHA-2 encoding. And one of the users had this password, mypass, right? So what we are doing here is we're selecting the user ID, first name, last name from users. So these columns are getting selected from users table where password is SHA-2 mypass, right? Because it's the encoded version of mypass password. MyPass has been inserted into the user's database. So this should return us that person.
So we made a mistake here. The mistake is we didn't mention the encoding length, because when we had put the password, we had mentioned the encoding length. So encoding length is 512, and let's try again. And yes, this time you see a row, Larry Ullman. And if I go back to the database, let's go back to database, you can see that entry at the beginning, right? Larry Ullman, and he had the password with mypass. This is the script, input script with the encoding length of 512. So that returned that one person. Next, let's try to find all the users who have null email. If I execute this, okay, none of the rows are returned. The reason behind that is there was no user included or put into the database who have null in the email field. That's why we don't see anything from this query. Next, let's try another execute another SQL query. So this time we are going to select all the first name of the users who have the last name Simpson.
So there was a wrong character here. Okay, so this is the right character. Okay. Now you see that we are selecting the list of first names from the user table who have the last name Simpson. Okay, if I run this, it will return all the first names from users table that has the last name Simpson. Okay. Okay, so that's how we select using a conditional. So here is one thing that you need to remember. So once you are using the conditional, these are the MySQL operators. For equals, it's equal, so not double equal. Okay. For equals, it's single equal. Less than, greater than, less than equals, greater than equals. Not equals is not equals, you know. But this one is the important thing that you need to remember. And then is not null, is true, is false. You can just use them directly. And then there is between, not between, in, not in, or, and, not, XOR. There are some examples using these conditionals in your book. Please make sure that you go through the examples in the book to see. So basically, suppose between, how between is used. So suppose you want to, suppose you users table had a, for example, suppose it had a field called like date. It's not date, age. So, or it suppose for these registration dates, right? So you want to select all the users that are registered between two dates. What you have to do now is you have to use the between operator, where suppose that registration date is between, and then you put the dates here. Okay, you put the dates here. Okay, next. Not is between, sorry, it would be just between. Okay, then using like and not like, what you can do is, suppose you don't know an exact term, but you want to search for a substring or just part of the string, part of the name you want to. So what you can do is, um, you can just use this like thing. So suppose I'm trying to select all the users where they have in their last name they have these letters bank or this substring bank. Let's see. And then after bank we put a percentage. That means uh, percentage means any number of characters after bank. So it might be an empty. That means it might be exactly bank and nothing else, or something else. Like suppose, okay, let's see. Like by this percentage means that I can. They are like for a regular expression. If you put a star, it means that any number of characters after bank, right? From 0 to any number of characters. So if you see here, we have selected all the users that has their last name starts with bank, right? So for the first one, Melissa Bank, you see that there is no more character after bank. But for the second record that we got here, after we have an S after bank. So the query said select all the users that has whose last names start with bank. So this is how you use the like. So like is also an operator. So last name, we know that we could use last name equals to something like equals to banks or bank. But if we want to fetch all of them who start with a specific character pattern or a substring, then we have to use this like thing. Okay. And then let's do this thing. Select first name, last name from users where email not like. So what it means is it will select all the records. So select first name, last name. It will show you the first name and last name of the users, like from the users table, where their email doesn't end with authors.com. The reason is we have this percentage sign at the beginning, and then we have these authors.com at authors.com. So it means that the email address ends with authors.com. Okay, now you see it gives you a bunch of people who has this, like whose emails don't end with authors.com. If I go to the table itself, you see, yeah, there are a few with authors.com. So this like these few records, right? So these few records were with authors.com. So the query that we executed excluded everyone because it said it's not like percentage authors.com. That means whoever has an email ending with authors.com is excluded. That's the use of not like, right? So basically with like and not like, you are doing a pattern matching. Okay, then for sorting the query results, what we use is we use order by. So let's do this thing. Go to SQL. So this query will return the first name and last name from users, but it will sort them by their last name. Okay, now you see it gives you all the records that are in the user table, but it's sorted in sending order. So the B, then C, then D, then H, and finally M, N, S, T. Okay, so it sorts them by. So by default, it's sorting them by ascending order. But if I want to make that, like change that, so suppose let's do this thing. Okay, so select first name, last name from users, and then I'm ordering by last name. And by ASC, specifically I mean that this has to be ascending. And then first name. So basically I'm sorting by 2 rows, not just one. And let's run this to see what we see. Okay. So here we are actually sorting them first by the last name. Okay. So by last name, you see B, then C, then D, right? G, H, I, J, L, M, N, S. So first it's sorting them by last name, ascending order. Okay, so this is the first level of sorting. It's doing the ascending order. But what happens if multiple people have the same last name? So suppose all of these people have the Simpson. In that case, now the second level of ordering is coming in place. That means among all the Simpsons, now they are also sorted based on the ascending order of their first name. So A, B, H, L, M, M. Okay. So that's what it's doing. First, it's going to sort everything. You also see the results here, right? It sorts everything based on the last name. And if the last names are the same, in that case, it sorts them according to the first name. So, okay, so this is the second level of ordering. Okay, so you can mention that what kind of sorting, in what order you want to sort them. So here, the keywords to note down is order by. And so if you just say order by default, it sorts by ascending order, but you can explicitly say ascending and descending to make whatever you want. If you don't mention anything, it will do ascending. And the other thing is you can do multiple level of sorting. So that's what we are doing here. First, we are sorting by the last names, and then if the last names are the same, we are sorting by the first names. Okay, and then after limiting the query results, limiting the query result means suppose you want to see, you don't want to see all the records. You want to see just a few. Suppose for this one, select first name, last name from users, order by registration date, descending. So that means I am taking all the people who have the descending means that, so the latest, the person with the latest registration will come first, then next, then next. So the newest registrations are going to be selected, but I just, once I say limit 5, it means I will show among all those people, I will show just the first 5. Okay. So if I do this, you will see a result like this. It will give you the list of the first name and last name of the people who have registered last, because I said registration date descending, but it will show you only 5 results because you are using this limit keyword. So by using the limit keyword, you can fix how many number of rows you want to see. Okay, next is updating table. Updating table is, so the keyword for update is update, and then you mention the table name, and then use the keyword set. So update table name, set the column value, the column name equals to value. So, or update table name, set column something equals to value where column, another column has this value. So let's show this example. Update users, set email to mike@authors.com where user ID is 18. Let's run this to see what happens. Okay, so if I go to the users table, you see the user ID 18, right? It has the original email address here is michael@authors.com. So what I am going to do here is I'm going to update the users table and set the email to mike@authors.com where user ID is 18. So as we already saw that user ID 18 has the current email address is michael@authors.com. But I'm updating the table, setting the email column, email field as mike@authors.com where user ID is 18. So if I do it, and then I go here to the users table, you see that user ID 18 now has email address updated to mike@authors.com. So basically, to update a record on your table, the keyword that you have to use is update. Then you have to mention your table name and then set the column equals to the value that you want to set, and then you can put your condition like which row you want to make the change in. Okay, and we saw one example where we changed the uh, email address for the user ID 18. And finally, deleting from the table. Delete from the table name where you have to put the condition. So that's deleting based on a condition. If you want to delete all the rows from the table, not the table, you want to keep the table, but you want to delete all the records, you can efficiently do it by using the truncate command. So truncate table name, it will actually clear out all the rows in an efficient way. Okay, so let's do this thing. Let's delete one record. Where, okay, delete from users where user ID equals to 18. Okay, so once you try to delete using the interface, you'll see this. It will actually prompt you for a confirmation, because delete is like a risky operation. You shouldn't actually do the delete accidentally. Okay, so now you see that user ID 18 has been deleted from the record. So if you want to delete the table itself, that's the command for that is drop, right? Drop table. But drop table name. But if you want to delete a record, the command is delete. It's something that some of you made the mistake in the exam. Okay. So that this is dropping the table, right? Already we showed you in the previous week. Okay, so now let's do some discussion on how we can use PHP with MySQL. Because so far we have discussed sufficient amount of PHP, SQL, and MySQL, and you have a bit of experience under your belt. So it's time to put all the technologies together. And PHP is a strong integration with MySQL is just one reason so many programmers have embraced it. It's very impressive. I think you will find it very much impressive how easily you can use PHP and MySQL together. So before we start, if you remember, for these SQL Server, right? So we have the root privilege for these PHP MyAdmin, but we didn't set any password. So the password is empty. So I will show you how we can how you can change the root password for MySQL in XAMPP. Okay, so I will share these instructions. What you have to do is here in your interface, go to the SQL query. Okay, go to the localhost server, select this, and then select SQL. Then you have to execute this command. It says set password for root. This means the username is root. That is the default username when you are actually when you are installing and running your server. So root at localhost equals to password, and then you put the password here. You can just put, for me, I put like CSC. That's it. Okay, if I say go, so far my root user doesn't have any password. It's empty. Then I set a password. Okay, it's successful. The password setting is successful. Now what will happen is I am actually accessing this uh, MySQL server using my root privilege, right? And so far, the user ID root didn't have any password by default. Now I have set some password. If I want to refresh this, Now you'll see this thing. It says it won't. It's not allowing me to connect to the MySQL server, right? The reason is access is denied for user root. The password is not correct. So what you have to do is you have to make some setting changes here. So inside the XAMPP, the place where XAMPP is installed, you will find this PHP myadmin folder, and inside that find this file config.inc.php. Find this, open it with WordPad, and then find this thing, okay, $CFG servers $I password. This one is, you see, empty here, right? So change it to CSC and save it. Now refresh this. So basically your settings now has the password, and now we are actually accessing the PHP myadmin with root privilege and which has a password, and you all saw, right? The password I set was CSC. So you can just put like any password there. Okay, now you learned how you can change your root password for MySQL in XAMPP. I'll share this instruction. All of you can change your root password like this. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start showing you how PHP is used for, okay, PHP is used with MySQL.